Strider has a pretty bad start, and I always viewed him as a second-tier candidate for this award because all of his underlying metrics, except his strikeouts, were not very good. All of his pitching metrics, standard pitching metrics, were pretty bad. In the WAR projections, he doesn't perform particularly well on average. But man, he strikes out a ton of guys. And those strikeouts, I think, obscured maybe his chances of winning the award to the point that like he has really been one of the two favorites for a really long time, even while putting together a resume that's not particularly good, right? So he finally has a start last night where he's not striking anybody out and he's getting lit up. So it's like the worst of both worlds, right? So it's kind of like, okay, here was a candidate who I think was really flawed anyway, but now everyone sees that kind of the emperor had no clothes and that he was actually like a flawed candidate. Now everyone thinks he's a flawed candidate, not just me and not just a couple other people. The market used to think he was like the most likely pitcher to win, and the market reacted pretty strong to him having a poor performance, right? It sometimes it takes a little time. As the start's going on, the price will move a little bit, but then usually there'll be like a reordering, almost like at the end of the night before you go to bed in a couple places, where some of the prices will shift. Some people are betting, but sometimes the prices are just moving. And he was really jettisoned to kind of like the back of the 5 and 6 pitchers that can win. 7, 8, 9 to 1 previously had been 2, 3, 350 off one start, and it wasn't just one start. I mean, his profile is incredibly poor. Like I have the 7 contending pitchers for Cy Young here right now with my calculations for what voters tend to value, and he rates dead last of the 7 by far. So it's just, and Corbin Burns is on this list, and Corbin Burns ain't going to win Cy Young either, and not even come close probably. So like it's just, that's always where he was, but now I think everybody kind of saw it. So it's always one of those funny things, right, where it's not like last night was some big thing. It shouldn't have been. It's something that's happened before. He's given up a lot of runs before in a lot of different games. But for whatever reason, last night was the tipping point where people were finally out on him. And so I think that's interesting, just like why people choose to interpret certain starts as more important than others. Maybe it's because they were a minus 300 favorite. That probably is a good place to start. Didn't strike out very many people, but like his ERA has been bad forever. It's one of the reasons why we didn't like him on this show and we preferred other pitchers instead. So yeah, I think like an interesting start, a meaningful start that the market moved so aggressively, but really just, it kind of feels like everybody just kind of finally came to the same conclusion that we have been coming to on this show, which is that like, yes, he can win, but I think the way I kept framing it was like, you should never, ever bet the price. His likelihood of winning is much higher, or his likelihood of winning, is much lower than the price is. His price should be much higher is what I meant to say. And so he was a never bet for me. And I think he's going to end up fading into obscurity a little bit, if I'm being honest. So let me ask you this, and I give my answer. Jake can give his answer too. If it's not him, Strider, there are a plethora of other really interesting candidates. Zach Allen's really good. Blake Snell's really good. Justin Steele's really good. And got bet a ton last night for like no reason. Logan Webb's really good. Corbin Burns is less good. So maybe it's like Gallen, Snell, Steele, Webb, which is a great, like, those are great syllables to say all in a row. If you had to pick one of those guys, just like not even knowing the numbers, but like you watch way more baseball than I watch. And you know these guys. Like Gallen, Snell, Steele, Webb. Do you have like a preference, even at price, of who you think can win?
I mean, I would still probably be on Gallen. I got to say that, not that he pitched bad. It gave me pause the other night when he couldn't get Edward Julian out. The guy was on base every single time, and he just looked like a really good pitcher, not a guy that you're going, oh, my God, he's the Cy Young. But I feel like, is that kind of what we have this year in both sides? Like Framber Valdez gets the Orioles tonight, and I know I'm getting off topic here with, they get the Orioles tonight. They're terrible against lefties, or bottom third of the league against lefties, so could be a chance for him to move up. But it's interesting to see these names here and kind of how I've been doing shows with you, and this is the only place I really talk about this. Some of the names are out, like Justin Steele is new to me, and seeing Blake Snell move all the way up because he's been a 5-inning pitcher. So it's just funny.
Yes. And we'll definitely talk about that. So, I mean, it sounds like you lean toward Gallen, who's the favorite right now. So
yeah.
the MGM market.
Yeah.
No, you're fine. The MGM market, Gallen 2-1, Snell 3, Steele 5. Had his odds halved last night, didn't pitch. Really a funny kind of set of situation, like just took money, kind of because Strider was bad. It was one of those things where I was just like, all right, I guess everyone's finally figuring this out that he's live. I'll just kind of give you, for my money, the bets that I would at least consider. And you're going to kind of have to take this start by start, but my gut feel about how this plays out, this is just like, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna immediately be like, man, I probably sound like a lunatic. I still think Logan Webb is going to win this award, and I know that
Okay.
sounds insane. I know that that is stupid and insane. I understand that. Just like, hear me out on this for a second. So first of all, I'm going to kick Strider. We read the statistical profile going into the break. Mount Everest to make up that much ground with like realistically 8 starts left, maybe less, 6 starts left, 7, something like that. We'll see what the Braves do. Corbin Burns, his price has been dropping. There are these late bloomers in award markets. Tristan Casas and the AL Rookie of the Year qualifies here, where it's like, well, they're playing really well right now, so the price is like plummeting. I mean, these guys are zeros. I mean, 0.0. Burns maybe is like a 0.1. Casas is actually a 0.0. Like, he could homer every day between now and the end of the year. He still might not win. Although he would have like 50 home runs, I guess, in that case. But you understand the point. He's like a 0.
Yeah.
Burns, his stat profile, 12th in F. This is in the National League, so against the people he's competing against for this award. 12th in F WAR, 19th in B WAR, 8th in ER. I mean, just like, why? Why the price drop? Oh, because he's really good right now. Well, great, no one cares. So cross him off too, right? So Strider and him out. You have 4 candidates left: Gallen, Snell, Steele, Webb. Okay, Gallen's great. He is the most likely pitcher to win. That's definitely true. He's also 2-1, so I can't be like, yeah, jam it, because one bad start and one good start by Justin Steele or Logan Webb, beyond what we saw last night, and this whole thing's gonna, like, I see the scoring in front of me. This whole thing's gonna flip on one start. If one guy's bad, and this could be working Gallen's favor. If he's great and the other 2 guys are bad, he'll build more of a lead. But like, he's a good way to think of it. He's like a half good start ahead of them right now. He's not even like a full good start ahead. Like, I mean, we're kind of on a knife edge here, and he's appropriately priced. He should be the favorite. So I don't want to bet on him, but I am very mindful of the fact that he is the most likely pitcher to win to me, and that he rates out that way. And we'll see if he can keep it up. And maybe there'll be a point where he's really far ahead and he's still 2-1 or 150 or even, and he shouldn't be. He should be minus, and you bet a lot of money on it at that point, whatever.
So, like, with a couple different things, like, it's easy to like the best guys to go into any course, right? I mean, you find value. Sometimes you're like, oh man,
good.
this course, this course fits Xander unbelievably well, or it fits Hatton unbelievably well based on his makeup. But the top tier guys, you're almost going to like them at every course, and people want to play them. They're expensive in daily fantasy. And then at the top, there were 3 guys that really stood out, and they're going to have the most ownership, and that's going to be, as we were talking about them, it's going to be Scheffler, it's going to be Rory, and it's going to be Rahm. And Rahm comes in a lot of the models that I've seen, like the 3rd highest own. So usually that's the guy I want to attack. So I want to get one of the best guys up top and have somebody that I feel like I'm building my team around that I think can really, really win. And then usually I'm going to look at some other guys that I think can finish well. Maybe want to make the cut, obviously, but this is a no cut, right? So it doesn't matter here, or does this have
a no cut event? Top 70, top 70 playing 4 rounds. Yep.
So it's a little different in DFS because I prefer the cut line in DFS because, it just, to me, it just gives it that added extra edge, and you get 2 great sweats when you're playing it. But Rahm is the one that stood out to me. I mean, you're looking at a great golfer. I'm not looking at course history or anything here or anything like that. I just think he fits any course well, for that matter. And I think of the top 3, that's the guy I want to attack because he's the least owned, frankly.
So there are 2 conversations, right? To win the tournament, and then just like guys who could finish really well, like guys, low price guys you'd want to include. So I think I definitely have like a list of guys for derivatives, like top 10, top 20. A couple places you can bet top 40. It's a 70 golfer field, so it's almost just like to beat like half the field is basically a bet you can make, a little more than half or a little less than half if you're playing top 40. So I definitely have guys that fit for me for that. And then I have like to win. So just to tie a bow for me on to win, you brought up Xander. So if I to kind of conclude the thought that I had in the last segment, so I applied 3 filters here. Like, I created a score for recent form where the previous 4 winners, once this moved to this part of the calendar and it was like a big boy tournament, my God, the recent form of the guys who have won, I mean, just like nuking courses prior to winning this. Let me give a couple stats to back that up. All 4 winners had a top 5 in their last 5 tournaments. I remember, like, we're in kind of major season going into this. All 4 of them had at least 3 top 5s in their last 10 tournaments. So, I mean, like, it's not just like, oh, we're like making cuts and top 20s and stuff like, no, like, chance to win almost half the time they play, or at least a third of the time in some cases. Kep got 5 top 5s in his 10 tournaments before coming in. So, like, that's the form we're talking about. And I mean, you look at some of the other guys, like, in this field that don't have that form, that's going to stand out right away. Like, Colin Morikawa is going to be the most popular guy picked. He has 1 top 5 in his last 10 tournaments. hearing what I just said, do you want to bet Colin Morikawa? No, of course not. And I think that'll
Not
be
at
really
all.
interesting because he's going to be really popular. Just to tie up both on, like, okay, when I apply those filters, recent form with like a scoring system I created, previous good finish, top 15 or better at this tournament specifically, and then how well do you play Colonial? So Zalatoris didn't play Colonial great. He only played it once because he's so young, and he finished tied for 59th. So, like, okay, you're not always going to get the winner by doing this. I mean, he didn't make the cut for what it's worth. And Daniel Berger had basically only played Colonial once. He won this tournament 2 years in a row. He had only played it once before he won, and he missed the cut. But after he won here twice, he went and won at Colonial a couple of years later. So, like, clearly he took to, like, these courses are very related. You're not always going to have all the info when you make your decision, but the Colonial best finishes here are striking. Like, Koepka has a second there. Harris English has a top 5. Ben Crane, who won here, has like 4 top 10s in 5 years at Colonial. Like, there's a big time. If you're good there, you're probably good here, you know, with some exception, but like, I think it really matters. So, okay, those 3 filters: previous finish here, Colonial, recent form. The list of guys who qualify using that is extremely small, and it's because, like, the big boy golfer has won here 4 years in a row. You get Scheffler and Rahm, no problem. You get both of them really easily. Rory doesn't have great results at Colonial, but he does fit, so he still qualifies as well. Xander qualifies, which is why I went through this whole long-winded explanation. We could talk about him in a second. Hovland has a top 20 here in 3 appearances, so not quite as good, but like does check every other box. And then Tommy Fleetwood would be another guy who qualifies, and Ricky Fowler, big time, would be a guy who qualifies. So the funny thing for that list with me, Jeremy, is like the difference between DFS and betting. You can put Xander Schauffele in a DFS lineup, or Ricky Fowler in a DFS lineup, or Tommy Fleetwood in a DFS lineup, and feel really good about it, right? Like, they're going to give you like they're going to get tied for 6th, tied for 4th, whatever. They're going to give you a great finish. When you are betting on golfers to win, let me tell you, there is not a list of names I would reject faster than Xander Schauffele, Tommy Fleetwood. I know Ricky Fowler won this year, but like, come on, like one of the worst Sunday golfers in the history of the tour. Like, these names, these are the guys who fit these filters. Like, oh God. So that's the situation I found myself in, is like, Rahm's the only guy I want to bet on to win. Like, I just, like, if you get to Sunday and I have these other guys, I'm not even going to like my odds. Like, I bet Ricky Fowler, he's leading on Sunday. I still think I'm going to lose. And so, you know, I might find some, like, again, so how do I want to play them? Head-to-heads, you know, position over-unders, that kind of stuff. So with Xander, for me, that's how I kind of view him in this tournament, is like, yeah, like, I think he's really likely to play really well. He just never wins, and he's like allergic to winning, and it's and that's tough.
And the reason I bring him up, so like in daily fantasy, typically you're looking at the cut line. There's no cut line this weekend, but you know, getting a safe guy that's making cuts is something where you're going to accumulate points on Saturday and Sunday, which to winning in DFS is imperative. Having more guys make the cuts. It doesn't mean if you have guys miss the cut that you still can't win, but you're going to need some guys, a couple of guys in the top 10 if you're going to take home a tournament. Xander's just one of those guys that always like speaks to me as far as daily fantasy. The other thing I did want to say as far as ownership, and I have the ownership, like if you want to know ownership, but they do factor in price tag on players when you're talking about a DFS. The ownership's going to be much higher this week because there's only 70 golfers. So there are going to be guys you just automatically eliminate, but you got to understand you're going to have some crossover with people because nobody's getting cut.
Do you have the ownership percentages there? You said you alluded to it. Do you have them?
Yeah.
Who are like the 5 most owned golfers in DFS this week?
So Scotty Scheffler was number 1. Yeah.
Okay.
So here we go.
Awesome. Yeah.
Here's the percentages I have too. 25% going to Scotty Scheffler, almost 24% to Rory. And the reason I like Rahm, of the 3 highest owned guys, he comes in at the lowest at 19%. But you got it again, only 70 golfers. Harman comes in next. Burns, Fowler, Hatton, Fleetwood, and Tom Kim. They're all right around 15, 16, 17%. Those guys in there.
I think definitely some not surprising names. Tom Kim's interesting because it's like, well, what filter did he fall short in? Well, like, he hasn't played a lot, so he literally has never played Colonial before, and his recent form is like good, not great. So it's kind of like he's like one of those guys where it's like, yeah, I guess he could win, but I don't know.
Are there any long shots, and maybe I'm getting too far in the weeds here because we were talking about how top heavy this thing could be, but anybody that pique your interest that maybe have a little bit more higher odds?
Yeah, my guy this week in the long shot, I bet Corey Connors at 70 to 1 this week already. He's just shown some good form, nice at Travelers. 19th at the Genesis. I don't really care about the Open. The Open's not really a quick hunter's track to me. And again, I'm mentioning I'm just going to have a lot of bad putters on my card because these greens are so easy to putt. His short game is fine around the green. I mean, he's basically going to gain strokes off the tee, on approach, and around the green. We can just knock that up. This is just a matter of, can he just gain like 1 stroke putting, 2 strokes putting? I do think he is one of the premier guys. If you're going to go like top 5, top 10 ball strikers, in terms of like a strokes game ball striking statistic, combining off the tee and approach, Carter's is there. So, you're getting a number at like the 70, 80 to 1 range on a guy who can strike the ball with either of these guys. It's not a relatively long course, but you do have to stay in the fairway. Super important. And this guy gains fairways with the best of them. And so, if it does turn into an iron contest, Corey Connors at 70, 80 to 1, and he's got wins on the in his profile. So he's my favorite guy, long shot, in that range.